this is extremely disturbing. And I mentioned the DOD. Chuck Hagel came out 5 weeks ago maybe, and he had a real cryptic, mysterious, almost nonsensical comment about the New World Order. And it wasn't so much that even the New World Order comment was in context. I remember how weird that sounded, and I told some of my associates, I think that was a cryptic message. I said, because he's not a stupid man. You know, he's not on drugs, and he didn't say something nonsensical. I said that was a coded message, in my opinion. And here we have 5 weeks later, he's out of a job. Well, I took this to, actually got called by one of my sources. I didn't take it to him, but I took the issue to him when he called me. I've got a very good military source, former high-ranking, and he told me that Hagel will not go along with any more persecution of American military. He told that Obama directly, he says, I've participated in too many firings. He says, if you want these people fired, you're going to have to get the Joint Chiefs to do it. He says, I'm no longer going to have these discussions because we're firing men of honor that are heroes that have defended this country. And that was the first nail in his coffin. And I understood that conversation took place about the same time he made the New World Order comment in public. Well, I've also come to find out, and let's go back in time. I'll back up and preface it by saying I wrote an article about a month after Ambassador Stevens was murdered, and the article strongly implicated the administration in being complicit in his murder. And I mentioned at the time Admiral Goyette, and by the way, this general who was talking to me today, same source for information, and he was right on the money with this. Admiral Goyette and General Han, the head of AFRICOM at the time, had conspired to rescue Stevens, and they were going to use him as a mouthpiece to unseat this administration and send most of them to prison. And they were arrested by their embedded CIA number 2 executive officers, and the plot was foiled. And a lot of people said that there will never be another attempt at a coup against this administration because Obama went on a reign of terror. He started firing people for poker chips and all kinds of nonsensical things, and the body count of these generals fired just grew exponentially. And a lot of people said, well, anyone who wanted to rebel will have to do so now on the outside where they have far less influence. And I heard that the rebellion efforts were dead in the water and there would be no effective military coup. In fact, if you guys remember, I was actually writing about this pretty heavily 18 months to 2 years ago. I don't think a coup ends well, but it's preferable to the direction this administration is taking us. I thought this was dead in the water. Well, I understand now that Hagel's refusal to fire any more military officers is directly tied to the fact that he doesn't want to disrupt the second generation that is no more loyal to Obama than the first generation he's fired, and that he thinks the breeding ground for setting this straight if things get wildly out of hand is in place, and he was prepared to sacrifice his position for that. And I was told that is the number one reason why he's out of office right now, is because he would not participate in any more purges. He was actually actively protecting some of these people. And so the long and short, when we step outside the matrix here of controlled information, I think the long and short of what we're looking at right now is there is more than likely, and my source wasn't exactly sure, but he used these words. He said, with a pretty good probability, he says, I can tell you there's discussions taking place right now about what to do with this out-of-control administration. And what's centering this is going back to Ferguson. We are actively putting Muslim terrorists on the ground to foment rioting that will result in the death of American citizens. So back to my original statement, guys, this president and Holder, they are responsible for being accomplices to murder if there's one person who dies. This is a big powder keg that's ready to blow up in everybody's face. Let's look at what we've got. We've got drug trafficking courtesy of the terrorist groups along with the Sinaloa cartel. You've got, and this is Muslim influence in this country, make no mistake about it. And then you've got the Muslim influence in Ferguson. If you go to Dearborn, Michigan, you can't get a job in the front counters in a public school unless you read, write, speak Arabic. I mean, we're looking at segments of our population that are being turned on our ear. We've had a judge in Oklahoma and a judge in Florida, and Annie has reported this in the news segment on our show, that have ruled under Sharia law They've embraced some Sharia law concepts in some of their rulings. But the agitators in Ferguson, I think we as a country need to put them on notice that we will someday be able to rid ourselves of the criminals in Washington, in the Department of Justice, and in the White House, and we will arrest and prosecute all these people who are trying to basically turn our country into having a civil war. And this is where this is headed, guys. I mean, let's be honest. If Ferguson spread, if it just spreads to a half dozen other cities, you're going to see the beginnings of massive martial law.